Hello and welcome back to OT, the podcast. We're here to talk about watches, time, and how to spend it. I'm Andy Green.
I'm Felix Schultz.
Felix, we have an exciting show today. We've got a classic watch matchmaker for a listener, Charles, writing in on behalf of his friend Greg. We've also got Kat and Katlen from Tenn Two joining us, one of your favourite watch podcasts.
Yeah, they're great.
Nashville, Tennessee, or Tennessee, Nashville.
Nashville's a city, Tennessee's a state.
Yeah, Nashville, Tennessee. But before we do, Felix, what's been going on in the watch world? There's a little bit to talk about.
Well, there's a lot. So not just we've got some new releases and new watches happening, but there's also been some deep sort of inside baseball, as they say, drama in the world of Richemont HR.
Oh yes.
So a story popped up on LinkedIn, and it's sort of been doing the rounds by a woman named Astrid Venderland, I believe. And it concerns Richemont's executive head of HR, a woman by the name of Sophie Guilles.
Oh, yes.
Who is now no longer in that position. And only today, as of recording, they've announced her replacement. But she was responsible for looking after the 37,000 employees and maybe trimming that number down a bit.
Uh-huh.
So she was responsible for trimming that headcount, saving costs. There was a lot of, unhappiness in the ranks, allegedly, apparently, about people not getting bonuses, having to take leave, all while she and the other members of the executive team had a salary bump of 30%.
Yeah, not good.
So there were some optics issues there, and there's sort of ongoing rumours and speculation as to shake-ups and, apparently Johann Rupert's heading to Geneva and heads will be moved around. Heads
will roll. Well, look, there's a couple of articles that have been kicking around, so we'll link them up in the show notes.
But it's an I think it's not, I don't want to sort of be throwing stones at Richemont, but I think the corporate side of it really, it kind of does matter, or, the overall company energy. Like you look at, someone like Richemont, they've got a very particular way of doing things and their releases and how they respond to things. It is very proper, whereas the guys over at LVMH, they're a bit more responsive, and that, I only see like what happens on the Australian side, but there is a bit of you notice the shift and the different ways of dealing with things. I think it's really an interesting.
Well, there's, like you said, 37,000 employees. It's a massive organisation by anyone's measure. That's multi-billion-dollar conglomerates. They've got, a dozen watch brands probably. We can't even count them all.
And then there's all the fashion, like they've been.
Exactly.
They're huge, and it's big business, and I think it's a really interesting thing to look at and think about how it maybe affects, end consumers, because that whole thing of annual price rises and all that plays into it. So.
Well, it almost extends beyond the watch world as well, in terms of they're like a corporate leader. Yeah. So it's a business case. It's a study. It's gonna be really interesting to see how they navigate through, because subject matter aside, it's a pretty big deal. And
they're having really tough times at the moment. It's like their exports are massively down, so it's going to be some shake-ups. Maybe we'll see. Who knows? That might mean brands might disappear or be folded. You don't know what it's going to lead to.
Interesting times. All right, what else has been going on?
Well, another thing I spotted over on, I saw this on Facebook, weirdly, on a local retailer, Pickings and Parry, that stock some sort of heritage brands. So
Not
normally,
far from where we record.
Yeah, just around the corner, actually. Cool. So normally I'm used to sort of getting press releases and stuff, but I think he might have sneakily dropped this before embargo.
Whoops.
I mean, honestly, it doesn't matter. It's out now, like the news. Or it was on the day, because I've only just started seeing it sort of percolate through. It's a new Timex, one of their cool limited editions with a UK designer, Nigel Cabourn, I think. Okay. It's his third. He's done a few, all pretty funky. This one's called the Survival, and it's a military style watch, so broad arrow at the top, 24-hour time in the inner ring. Bright yellow, which is inspired by sort of apparently World War II, what the pilots would wear to be seen if they were shot down, that sort of stuff. It's really, really cool. And do you remember when we caught up with Erica from Erica's Originals the other year? She was wearing those overalls?
Yes, I do.
Nigel Cabourn.
Okay, cool.
So it's pretty cool. He's a cool guy. And I was doing a bit of research on Blammo, Jeremy Kirkland's podcast that we both love and listen to. Hasn't done him.
Not yet?
No.
Okay. Well,
get on it.
If we see him on Blammo next week, we'll know he's
made the call.
We love Jeremy.
So that's a cool one. I imagine that'll be sold out by now. They're pretty hot. It's kind of like my Helios vibes, but yeah. And the last but very much not least, Andy, you sent this to me in a DM.
I did.
Why did you send this to me?
Anytime I see a high-end piece with some lovely, colourful gemstones adorning the dial and the bezel and the case, I just immediately think of you. So this is the new Breguet, one of their high jewellery pieces. I believe it's called the...
the Positana. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest, but it's a
Posidonia Oceana.
Yeah,
something like that.
It's sort of like seaweed, and it sort of looks like sort of kelp or something, sort of floating through the ocean, but realised in very specific baguettes.
Beautiful.
It's a cool looking watch.
Baguettes all around the case, like coloured baguettes all around the bezel. Those sort of seaweedy tentacles are again gradient.
Yep, bit rainbowy. We'll put up a link so you can sort of see it in, it's all its glory. Also came along with some, new precious metal bracelets for other marine lines. Got a question for you, Andy.
Yes.
Who is this watch for?
This is for... this is like the flex piece for someone very stylish, very like high into fashion, like Anna Wintour or someone like that who's kind of... I just sort of go, I mean, Breguet has a history of doing these really sort of bonkers high-end jewellery pieces, but it's not sort of for me what the heart of the brand is. Like I don't go, if I go, Andy, you've got unlimited budget to spend on a totally iced out amazing gem set jewellery piece, is Breguet in that list? No, of course not. But I feel like this is like a Met Gala piece. This is like a Billie Eilish piece.
Really?
Yeah, think about it. In like 5 years' time, when she's going to the Met Gala, she'll be wearing like some tentacle dress or some ocean themed dress, and this is where you see that watch. Like you're not going to see this watch anywhere else until like a Met Gala photo in 5 years' time. Yeah,
right. For me, I guess it's no doubt Breguet has the ability and the capacity to do this sort of stuff. And it's one of the few outside of Harry Winston, one of the few places in Swatch that can sort of get away with this.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's sort of outside of their core narrative, and I do find that very interesting I just wonder who buys them.
I feel like it's going to be made to order.
Sure, but who orders it? So that's my question. I think it's a beautiful piece, but
all right,
conceptually,
let's move on. But before we do, let's take a quick break. Today's episode is brought to you by Swiss Typefaces, who help make the show possible. Have you ever wondered, Felix, what the city of Stockholm, Google Android, and David Beckham's football team Inter Miami have in common with OT the podcast?
I have.
Well, for those who don't know, we all use the same fonts from Swiss Typefaces. When we were building the visual identity of OT, we knew that the right typeface was going to be very, very important because they're everywhere, especially when you're in digital, which, let's be honest, everyone is.
But I find typefaces, they're often overlooked, which is why there's so much stock Comic Sans out there in the world.
Yuck. We knew we wanted something a little bit more cool and a little bit more custom, which is exactly what Swiss Typefaces was able to offer. We ended up with Euclid, which we like for its strong geometry and very graphic feel. It's on our logo, our social media, and it's a big part of the OT brand. Though we did nearly go with some of the very cool, very wild and experimental fonts in their lab section.
So if you're building a brand or looking to refresh your existing one, don't overlook the typeface and check out SwissTypefaces.com.
And we're back. All right, Felix. Well, a few other things have been happening lately.
You've been a busy boy.
I've had like dozens of new watches kind of pass through my house. Interestingly, I ended up with nearly 3 dozen of the new Breitling models.
Oh yeah, just
a couple of nights sleepover.
Casual splurge.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. A funny little story about how that all came about. But I basically ended up with I think it was like 26 of their new pieces for 2020. So I think the entire Chronomat collection.
Yeah, nice.
Which is really cool. It was really interesting to sort of see the new bracelet. And
did you see your Rainbow Boy? Was that in there? Or?
No rainbow, but the Heritage 57 was in 3 variations. So the black, the blue, and then the two-tone, which is really cool. Really like the size of it. I think it's the concave bevel that kind of comes in.
How do you find that?
It's cool. It's funky. Like,
yeah, okay.
The whole thing is kind of funky, and that with the rainbow, like I missed out on the black one, as I think I've said before.
Yeah.
But the black with the rainbow with that bezel is like
combo.
It's a perfectly funky combo.
Yeah.
And I think for the money, I think they're retail for like around 7 on the bracelet.
7, 8. More for gold.
Yeah, but for like the stainless steel on the bracelet, I think is like $7,000. I think that's reasonably good value. Like I think it's quite a fun piece overall. The chronomats, I really like the copper dial.
That was my pick. Yep.
And the full gold on a rubber strap was quite fun.
How was the bracelet?
The bracelet itself, so there was only one piece that was actually sized up to my wrist. So when I first put the bracelet on, it was quite interesting. I thought, no, this is massive. Like this wears like a 46 millimeter watch. And then just by chance, there was one that was perfectly sized up for my wrist. And I put it on and it was lovely. It was comfortable. It wore like 42. So it wears true to size, which is one of the big questions I've been asked. I didn't find it pinched. I did find that the clasp was a little bit, like felt a little bit loose, like it might release accidentally, but like I had press stock, so I don't know.
Okay, so is it just a push?
It's a squeeze both sides, and it kind of pops off.
Yep.
But overall, really cool. So I would go the copper dial stainless steel, or if you're really like into it, the gold. I wasn't too impressed with the two-tone.
Really?
Yeah,
You want more gold for you?
I want more gold. Like
I'm holding out for. I think I've said it before, and I'd really like a yellow gold two-tone. I think that'll be more of a poppy sort of combo.
But really cool to see. And yeah, like I said, there's like 6 or 7 different variations. Like I had every chronomat. I think the Breitling fans that have kind of previously owned them or enjoy it but think it's a bit too big, this is really going to hit a sweet spot.
A bit more mature?
Yeah. A bit more refined, and it's cool to see sort of Breitling head in this direction. There was also the Top Time.
That retro chrono.
Yeah, with like the little cross dial thing. That's really nice.
Yep.
I was pleasantly surprised. I also had a bunch of new Bremonts. So half a dozen Bremonts not long after. So the new Martin Bakers.
How do you? We've spoken about this a bit. What do you think about the design tweaks on it?
Yeah, well, I have so this is the new MB2, which I kind of own the previous one now, which is interesting to think of. They've taken the day of the week off the dial. They've readjusted the proportions of the kind of...
The dial layout?
Yeah, the dial layout itself and the size of the numbers and that sort of stuff. You can get a clear case back or a coin case back. They've introduced the blue dial. So previously it was black and just white. And obviously they've got that whole configurator thing of like, 1,000 combinations. The tweaks that they have made make it look better, I have to say. Like
I've come around. I think like looking at your picks has certainly helped. Like I like the new handset, so they've cleaned up the hour hand, and I think the date only does look a bit neater.
So the thing with the MB2 that I have is it looks bigger than it is. This looks as big as it is. So I think in terms of the proportions, they've nailed it. They also had the new Charlegrove strap, which is the bi material.
It's with like the bright orange or blue underlay situation.
Yeah, with like a leathery thing on top. And that is super comfortable. Like in terms of rubber straps, that's super light, super comfortable. Feels real good on. I like the colours. Nice watch. What else jumped out? I had the new Alt 1 P2 Jet, which is the black DLC with the creamy dial and hands. That was surprisingly fun.
You were really into the other one though, the Griffin.
Yeah, I love the Griffin.
Why? What's the vibe there?
When I saw the photos of the Griffin, I thought, no, this is a bit meh. Like it's just a variation on something that they had.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, like the warmth of the dial. So it's got the black dial with sort of the creamy hands and hour markers and all that sort of stuff. But paired with the strap that it came on, which was like a dark leather strap, and it just is nice. Like with the brush case, the black dial, dome crystal, it was just beautiful when it came together. And I think I sent you some photos and I was like, this is like a bit of a winner.
Enthusiastic.
Yeah, well, I didn't like it from the pictures, and then I saw it. Classic case.
You got to see him IRL.
Yeah.
And speaking of seeing things IRL, I've got on my hot little wrist the Yima Navograph.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it's one of those ones I've sort of always been a bit interested in. Like you see the ads on Facebook and Instagram, and it's sort of they reached out for something. I'm like, can I borrow one? And they said yes.
Sweet.
So it's if you're not familiar, it's sort of for me. It's got those like 70s, 80s, 90s IWC vibes. That sort of technical that case and the yellow and vintage aluminum. It's just a nice sort of watch. I mean, the proportions are a little. It's a little thick and it's a little bit clunky in the profile a bit, but it's $690 US, so it's solid. Solid watch.
Jeez, have we put that forward for our watch matchmaker? Should have.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe we can throw it in, but I mean, well, I think the watch matchmaker's got a good bunch of select anyway, so it's tough competition there. But yeah, solid. And what else? I've been doing a few more Zooms.
Yes, you have.
but one of them sort of was a bit noteworthy. It was not a media one; it was a community one organised by Paxton in Sydney.
Yes, Paxton, great guy.
Yep, and with Grand Seiko. So it was really a bit different. Like normally it's a PowerPoint presentation. There's like 20 journos in there just not saying anything.
Yeah.
But this was like 75 Seiko fans.
Wow.
There was a lot of unmuting going on and like questions coming up, like super like hardcore ones about, the spring drive, where does the electrical power go if you hack it for more than a minute? Very deep stuff, and Vincent was moderating that, did a really good job. So that was fun. I think that's something that's going to continue even after, COVID, we stop, seeing...
Isolation. Okay. Yeah, that's fantastic.
But
cool.
I think that'll do for me for now. What have we got to do now? We've got to get some people on the line.
Yes. So today's guests, Felix, are you ready?
Tell me more.
Today's guests hail from the southeastern state of Tennessee, famous for Dollywood, Dolly Parton's amusement park.
You don't have to tell me what Dollywood is.
Graceland and its capital, Nashville, which is the heart of the country music scene.
Yeah.
It's also famous for a podcast you might have heard of. Any guesses?
I'm going to make it... No, I'm not going to make any NASCAR jokes.
Don't make any NASCAR jokes. So we've got Kat and Katlen from Tenn Two, which is, as they self-describe, two Tennessee women exploring the exciting world of horology.
Nice. I think that's sort of like the mirror world equivalent of us.
Exactly. Well, look, they're what we call veterans of the podcast watch game. They've done over 70 episodes as of recording.
They're like old school.
So let's get them on the line.
Yeah, let's get some tips.
On the phone, Felix, we have Kat and Katlen from Tenn Two Media.
Well, let's not introduce them. Let's let them introduce themselves and what Tenn Two Media is. Hi, Kat and Katlen. How are you?
We are good.
Yeah. How are you guys doing today?
Great. It's so good to speak to you guys for the first time ever. Kat, why don't you start? Tell us a little bit about yourself and sort of how you got into watches.
Yeah. So, well, this could be a long story. You might want to sit down for this one. But no, I got into the hobby a couple years ago out of my frustration with smartwatches and fitness trackers and all that kind of stuff. And they were breaking down, they were getting cruddy and nasty, and I was sick of it and wanted to have something nice. And so I quickly dived deep into the forum, which is, I realize not everyone does that. And I got lost in this deep sea of automatic watches, and I bought my first Seiko, and then I was hooked from that point on. And, I started buying and selling quite a bit, as people call me a flipper. Which is, it's okay. I accept it. I accept it.
Accept it now.
I accept it now. I'm okay with the term. I was easily offended for a while, but
I think it's important to own that.
Yeah, I was.
If you are going to be a flipper.
And there was something about the hunt.
Yeah, everyone has that thing. And what about how did Tenn Two come about? Like, what was you've gone from being into watches to being America's podcast New York Times featured moguls.
Well, thank you. So after, of course, being in the hobby for a few years, I quickly realized there was not many women that were out there speaking up and on YouTube and such. And I realized that YouTube wasn't the route for me, but I wanted to do a podcast. I was listening to Adinky, I was listening to Worn and Wound, and the struggle became that I needed a co-host. I knew Katlen from Instagram, and we met up. She lived here locally in Nashville. We met up at a Nashville Watch Club meetup, and a couple days later, I asked her to be on a podcast with me, and she said yes. So,
and here we are.
Here we are. Here we are today.
She said yes.
My main question is, how important was the fact that you have very similar names into?
Oh, well, there's so many similarities.
People used to think. So some of my coworkers thought that I had two Instagrams. That I would only post some of my watches on my Instagram, and then that I had this secret one called, where I went by Kat, because I used to go by Kat all the time. Until the podcast, we decided that would be a little confusing, and one of us had to use our real name. Yeah, one of us had to use
that's how I ended up as Andy.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, that's... Can I just say, that is a genius marketing move. Like, everyone's got to remember Kat and Katlen. That's great, from Tenn Two. It really works well.
It was just
natural.
Coincidental. We'd been Instagram friends forever, and we talked every now and then, but we had never met. I don't even think I really registered that you lived in Nashville, even though your Instagram says it, but whatever. It was meant to be.
Yeah.
So, and now here we are a year later.
Here you are, elated. You've been busy. You've sort of, as of today, you've done 70 episodes of the show.
We have.
Huge.
It's gone by so quick, and I know you guys probably say the same thing. It really starts flying by, and the quarantine has definitely changed things for the better. To be honest with you, we've been able to spend a little bit more time together and work on some projects that we had pushed to the back books for a while. So it's been great.
Yeah.
Well, we're not here, it is lovely chatting to you, but we're here for a serious purpose.
There's work to be done.
Watch matchmaking work. Are you guys up for helping us out?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're up for it.
I'm excited. I think it'll be fun.
All right. Let's get into it. Let's see who we're helping out this week.
Alrighty.
Look, I'll read out Charles, who's written in on behalf of his friends. So he wrote in and said, hey guys, my friend Greg from university has been wearing big-ass, ugly G-Shock watches as long as I've known him. He was able to get away with this behavior for a couple of years because he spent so much time in the military. But being a military man myself, the culture is, dominated by those Garmins and Sunto watches. I have nothing against G-Shock, but I think you'd benefit from a bit of variety in his watch collection. That's where we come in. So he's left the Marine Corps and he's interested in a proper non-digital watch. It's important to mention he's still an active guy. His job is a little bit corporate at times, but he's very often getting his hands dirty with, solar power projects or scuba diving or welding or metal fabrication. His budget is an estimated $500 to $1,000 USD, but he's sure that Andy will stretch it to $10,000 USD. Is correct?
Estimate is the key word there.
And he's got some ideas, but he's keen to hear what we think. So for me, the key points to just bring out before we go is that obviously, so it's US dollars. He's based in America. He's a rugged sounding fella, ex-military, still, getting his hands dirty. And it's that entry into the world of horology, which is, I think, really interesting.
Yeah.
Because he's got 4 experts now to help guide him.
And his mate. So he's got like a panel.
Yeah. I just think there's so many things I wish I knew, when I bought my first expensive watch, and I wish I had, people like us.
What was your, maybe Kat and Katlen, what were your first watches, like proper, grown up or like expensive watches?
Ooh, expensive. First probably watch over $1,000 for me was my Omega Seamaster. I had the electric blue dial that was popular in the late 90s.
I love that watch.
Yeah, it's stainless, but polished stainless steel bezel. So that was my first foray into kind of the luxury watch world, or anything that costs more than $500, to be honest with you. But
that's
yeah,
still
that
one of my
watch did
favorite
me
watches. That exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. I no longer have it, and I'm very sad because that blue I have not seen replicated with any other watch.
I wish they would redo that blue.
Yeah,
I
that'd be
feel like
awesome.
it would be such a great color now.
Cool.
And so no regrets there, clearly, from like your first grown. So you've, nothing, no wrong. What about you, Andy? What was your sort of first proper watch? Was it the March Lab?
I'd say it was a March Lab. I was like 20. I was coming.
It's a bit of a weird choice, isn't it?
I know. I was doing like a bit of my first Euro trip, and I ended up in Paris. And I was kind of like, I wonder what watch stores are around here. And then they had a boutique, and that was sort of the French watch brand that popped up. And I did a fair bit of research, I must say. I think it was Worn and Wound and a couple of those other sort of sites that focus more on the independent and micro brands back then. And yeah, it was a AM3, so it had a really cool kind of green crystal clear case back and gunmetal grey dial and an interesting case. And yeah, like I still have it, but I don't really wear it.
You've gone a long way, really, haven't you?
Yeah, oh Jesus, it's a slippery slope.
Yeah. So, well, I mean,
Very slippery.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, why don't I kick it off with a couple of suggestions, and then we'll float around the virtual rooms.
Nice.
So, look, my first one is the Zodiac Super Seawolf. Now, I've chosen the reference as the navy blue dial and bezel, and it's on a bracelet. So the price is $1,400 US. So yes, I am over, and I'm not sorry about it. And that's about $2,000 Aussie for our Aussie listeners. This guy is, and we have a bit of a general rule here, no hypey pieces. And I think I've broken it. Not only have I broken the budget, but I've broken the no hypey pieces rule because you can't really buy this at the moment. But there are a bunch of really cool variations of the Super Seawolf. They're all sort of slatey colours or pastels, that sort of thing.
My favourite was the watermelon one they did.
Yeah, Hodinkee have done a fair few of them.
Yeah.
I think bang for buck, like Zodiac, is a really cool watch. A watch manufacturer, allegedly worn by serial killers, if you believe the myths.
Does that make it cool, Andy? Does it?
Depends what you're into.
I don't think
Everybody has their thing, right?
we're not representing
judgment.
Australia well right now.
Look, true crime is a booming business, especially in the podcasts. But
It really is a booming podcast industry. It's amazing.
we might have to pivot after this. But I think that for the money, it's a really cool. You're going to find a color kind of combination within the Super Seawolf that you're going to like, and it's got legit heritage credibility. It's waterproof to 200 meters. It's got all the lume that you need. It does it all. It's a fun beating watch. So that's my first one. My second one. Again, it's over budget, so whoops.
Estimate. It was an estimated
It was
budget.
an estimated budget, and I estimate that this is the budget he's actually going to go with. So my next one is an Aquadive Poseidon GMT. $1,495 US if you pre-order it, which is highly recommended. Now, this is the stainless steel, comes in an isofrane rubber strap with those... Yeah, and it's done in partnership, obviously, with the Poseidon, which is that sort of diving organisation. They've done some stuff with Doxa in the past, had a really successful collaboration there, and then they've sort of moved on to Aquadive. Again, like this is a renowned brand for being like tough and durable. It's got legit cred in like that diving community. If he's into that, I think scuba diving, you kind of max go to like 40 meters. This has you covered for much deeper, 1,000 meters. So it's plenty. I really like the yellow kind of inner bezel and Poseidon logo on that sort of left-hand side of the dial. And you know what? It's good enough for Jason Heaton. So
That's what I live my life by. What would Jason Heaton do?
exactly.
I think many of us do the same thing.
Yeah, he's the nicest guy.
Is he?
He's a gem. He's an absolute gem.
Yeah.
Anyway, enough fanboying over Jason.
Yep.
Otherwise, it's going to be every other episode.
Also, Zach's a big fan of Aquadive as well. So
Awesome. Well, we'll move on to Kat's select, and then we'll do a bit of a recap at the end. But Kat, what have you got for Charles?
So I chose a watch that I really haven't talked about on our podcast very much, but I went with the Baltic Aquascape, and this is the black and cream dial. Comes in at $750 US. When now imagining a watch for his buddy, he wanted something that was dressy, that he could wear in that corporate setting, but he still wanted something he could possibly dive with and have that tool watch look. So I'm going to go with the Baltic on the rubber strap, on the tropical rubber strap that it comes on. Nothing against the Beads of Rice bracelet, but I think that I honestly have seen several guys wear a tropical rubber strap on a diver with a suit, and I like the look. I really, really do. So I think that under the cuff, you can kind of, play around with that in an office setting. If not, I think this fauxtina that they do is very well done, and I think it would look great on a leather strap as well. And then he can pop on that rubber when he's going out for a dive. But coming in at 39 millimeters, that's a perfect size. Not only for me, but for a lot of people in general. 20 millimeter lug width, so great for multiple strap options there. 200 meter water resistance. Kind of the normal specs that you'd want to see in a dive watch and a tool watch. And there are this range, this price range, $500 to even $1,500. There are so many options out there. So, there's so many options, and it's hard not to. I mean, you really can't go wrong. I mean, there's so many great options. Whether you're spending $500 or $1,500, you can really find something that hones in on your style and your aesthetic. That you dress with every day. But this watch is great. Sapphire glass, sapphire crystal, but I love the look of this watch, and I think it plays really well with that maybe office corporate setting, along with, him working around and going diving and such.
yeah, 100%. It's there's actually one on the table in front of us. It's an excellent watch. It's so versatile. It's I think everyone loves it, and it's
Thinking more about
you
it.
guys got one there.
Yeah, I've got one with
Nice.
the white dial, so not the cream, the black and the white. But I'm looking at it, I'm just thinking this is the perfect sort of set and forget. I'm a new watch guy kind of piece because there's no date window or wheel to worry about. It's got a reliable movement. Changing the bracelet is super easy. Even if you get the bracelet, like it's, those push pins, which is brilliant. It's got the lug holes on the side, so you can put straps on and off really easily. Like if you're not a watch guy,
you do not have to worry about this at all. And it looks good. 100%. This is not to talk everyone else down, including myself. I think this might be the one.
It's kind of like an idiot-proof sort of, watches for dummies. This is like this would be the cover. All right. Well, Felix, over to you.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny you sort of leading on from the Baltic. My first selection is sort of the same, sort of theory, like a set and forget. You can't go wrong. I've gone over budget by a fair bit actually, but I've gone with a Quartz Grand Seiko. This one's the basic sort of 40mm SBG P00011.
Okay.
So it's, again, many of those sort of similar things. Good size, beautiful, Grand Seiko's Grand Seiko. You can't go wrong with the finishing. It's the quartz is amazing. But the sort of the theory here is it's tough enough for everything, but it's also, it's a little bit dressier than some of the other suggestions. And I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like if you've come from G-Shocks, this is a more elevated look, and I think it's a watch that you could have for the rest of your life, and it wouldn't go out of style. It wouldn't go.
So this one with that, you're right. The black dial and sort of it's got much higher end finishing.
Yeah, but it's still like you can wear that down on a strap. You can put that on
sure.
You could probably go. It's 100 meters. You can go swimming with it. It's not a dive watch. But I think it's one that if you're going to spend serious money, which, $2,500 is a lot of money on a watch, it'll be fine for the rest of your life. And it's quartz as well, so you don't have to stress about it, which I think if you've come from, digital and all that, you might not want to have an automatic experience.
Yeah, I really like that.
Mm-hmm. Very fair.
And the other one, I've covered both my bases. I've gone with, sort of a bit more dressy, a bit more timeless in style through to... maybe the slightly more grown-up version of the ugly-ass G-Shock, which is the Luminox. Again, a brand that's sort of got that background in military cred. That's sort of what they've built their brand on. But this is a bit more traditional and a bit more, downsized. It's only 44 millimeters.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty classic sort of diver style, black bezel, steel case. Not too much to say about the looks there, but it does have those cool radioactive gas hour markers. So it's got a bit of fun there, and it's only $545.
Very nice. There's some cool stuff happening with the loom, right? It's like a minty green, except for 12 o'clock and what looks like the minute hand.
Yeah. So the minute hand, the 12 o'clock, and also the bezel pip is like a tiny little gas tube. So they're all orange and the other stuff is green, so you can tell what the time is.
Okay, that's a natural evolution of the G-Shock.
Yep, that's my thinking there.
Yeah, for sure.
Very nice.
For sure.
And
makes sense.
And Katlen, you've got a choice for us as well.
Yeah. So I actually went with a US-based brand that is relatively new still. They've only been around for a couple of years now. Mm-hmm. I went with the Notice Retrospect. So I actually personally own one of these watches. Absolutely love it. I think it's a great blend of something that looks and has a rugged making to it. It's very practical for any sort of rugged experience, but also it would look just fine in a boardroom. It's a 40.5 millimeter case. The lug to lug is a little bit long. It's 49 millimeters, so it does wear larger, especially if he's used to wearing, I'm going to assume the big ass G-Shocks are like not the cute square 5600 series. Like they're like the really big ones
the
that none of us
Mudmasters
could pull off.
Yeah,
that nobody with a regular wrist could pull off. So it does wear larger, which I like about this watch. 12.5 millimeter thick. The lug to lug, or the lugs are 22 millimeters. It also it comes on a really great H-link bracelet. And the bracelet is all brushed, which is phenomenal if you are a little bit more rough on the watch. But then they also always come with a Barton silicone elite strap, and it has drilled lugs. So for a watch novice, we can all
Perfect.
agree that drilled lugs are so easy, so convenient.
Not even
to
for a
do.
novice for me.
I know, I do. I hate that I like drilled lugs so much because
I think we've all got
yeah.
drilled lugs.
Yeah, I'm wearing drilled lugs today as well. But paint a picture, because this is a brand that I wasn't aware of until just now. So there's a few dial variations, and it's got sort of a stainless steel bezel. But paint a picture of this watch for the listeners for us, if you don't mind. Which dial?
So the dial variations are stunning. So they just introduced their second series of the retro spats, which are sold out currently, but they are going to get more batches in. I believe all the colors are sold out.
Okay.
So the colors, there is a salmon color, there's a sky blue color, there's like a white silver color, which is my favorite, absolutely stunning. And then they did also do a limited edition black color, which I think is also sold out at this point, but we'll see. One of my favorite things about this dial is the sandwich. I think sandwich dials are so just absolutely stunning. The luminescence on this too, I cannot describe the loom accurately. I mean, it's ridiculous. The bezel is loomed, the sandwich dial, the hands, even the date wheel, like the date wheel window, the window of the date wheel is loomed, which is something that I never see, and it's absolutely stunning. The movement's phenomenal too. They use the Seiko NH35A movement, so it's very reliable. Plus or minus 10 seconds per day. Which if he's a novice in watches, he's not really going to pay attention to little things. He's not going to be OCD about it being plus or minus.
Where
1
can
or
I
2
service
seconds.
this?
Exactly.
What's
it does have the dolphin hands. Yep.
Sorry, what was the price on this fella?
I believe it's $450 US
Whoa,
dollars.
that's great. So it's about
Yeah.
$1,000-ish.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, that's great.
Man, that exchange sounds painful when you say that, actually.
No, well, it's not quite that bad, but normally there's a bit of tax stuck on top,
Yeah,
and
it's picking
everything creeps up a little bit more than it should.
Okay, so
Government always has to get theirs.
So that's 6 really good choices. And if we think back to the sort of original criteria, it was around $1,000 US, a tough watch, and an entry into the world of horology. Why don't we start with you, Kat, and kind of hear your pick of the bunch, and then we'll kind of make our way back here to Melbourne.
You can pick your own if you want as well.
Yeah, that's
Just so
totally
you
fine. Felix does it every week, so.
Yeah, well, I mean, I do think that my option was pretty good. However, I will say that I was going to go for a Zodiac as well until I saw that Andy had picked it, because I'm a huge fan. We got to go hands-on with a couple of Zodiacs last year of the Super Seawolf series, and man, the Jubilee bracelet that they have on those things is amazing quality.
Really?
Yeah, so I'm a huge fan of Zodiac. And I love where they're going. I love the color styles that they have. Would it be something for someone that wasn't a watch geek? I don't know. They may be a little too colorful at times, but they certainly have those more subdued colors as well. But yeah, it'd be a close tie between Andy and myself on the Baltic. So that's a tough one.
Okay.
That's a really tough one.
And Katlen, what are you going with?
I totally disagree with Kat.
Oh.
Completely. Yep, 100%. I do think the Notice is a really great choice, but honestly, I think the closest to what this gentleman will be most comfortable with would be Felix's choice with the Luminox. The Quartz is a really great game because so many people don't know about automatic watches and don't understand that the maintenance, not just the maintenance, but just the everyday upkeep of them, keeping them wound. And a lot of people find that to be an inconvenience. And it sounds like this guy has a lot. I'm sorry?
No, I'm just agreeing. You don't need, like, automatics they're kind of painful if you only have one. I mean, it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hassle for me. Half the time I forget to wind them before I get to work, and then throughout the day I'm like, oh, should have set the time today. Yeah. But yeah, I think the Quartz is a great option. I think the size is good. 44 millimeters. He's used to wearing, the Mudmaster or whatever else. I think it's going to work. And if he's used to wearing G-Shocks now, he's probably not looking for something that really dresses up, in a boardroom. So he probably wore his G-Shock with, a suit or with his business casual dress. So
The horror.
I'm sure the Luminox will fit in perfectly well.
Yeah, cool. Well, I'm gonna sort of pay back the compliment actually, and I'm gonna go with the Notice. I think it's Hey.
All right.
Well, because for me, I think it's sort of like getting old mate out of his comfort zone a bit, and also having a watch that will set him up for, the rest, the next phase of his career and his life. And I think that retrospect, it looks like it's a classic watch. It looks like a nice, everyday, stylish watch that's got enough interesting things about it that you're not going to get bored of it. And so similar, like that was sort of the thinking I was going with the Grand Seiko, like, because I'm sure he's got to still have his Casio, and if he's going, if he's welding,
for sure.
if he's welding, he might want to pop that on. But it's also, something else for other occasions. Maybe he goes to a wedding, maybe he wears a suit, and that notice will look great in all those occasions. It's a really cool watch, and I like the hour markers.
Yeah, okay. All right. Interesting. Well, I'm going to disagree with all of you.
You've got to pick your own watch again,
I'm picking my own watch, and because
I've
we've bounced around, and it's been a bit of a loop. And I'm kind of thinking more and more about the position of Charles' friend Greggy boy, and I think I'm going to romanticize here, but I think that the Aquadive Poseidon is the pick, and let me tell you why. Because he gets to experience the romance of pre-ordering a watch and sort of putting some money down. Having to wait. Yeah. It's a whole process. He experiences so many parts of the process of like.
I think you're mistaking romance for stress.
Frustration.
Stress, whatever it is. But it's excitement. Like if it's the first one and it's like, I got to wait. Like it's a pre-order. It comes with a couple of extra straps. So you get that whole, there's this like thing about changing straps on a watch. It's got that so it comes with a bright yellow one as well and like a mission patch. But I think being like a military guy for, I think, 10 years, Charles said, you could really get him on the romance of a brand like Aquadive.
Sure.
And kind of build up the whole, no, this is like a tough watch. That's, this model is part of the partnership with Poseidon Diving Systems. It's ultra capable. It can do whatever you want. Like, yeah, it's, $1,500 or $2,000, but it's $2,000 that, you're going to see on your wrist and know that it's really, really tough. And I just think that in terms of selling him on the world of horology, like this could be the piece where it's like, he just, you research it, you read all about ISO frame straps, you read all about Aquadive, you read all about the history of that brand and Poseidon and the partnership. And, you learn about partnerships and limited editions and pre-orders and all of these other fun things all in the one go. So I'm going to go with that. But
backing your own horse hard, Andy Green.
I'm backing that horse hard because I think about my own way in and how I found it. So, obviously a little bit biased, but I also I love Baltic, and we were just talking about them, every other episode it seems. But the bang for buck, I kind of wish that Baltic was around. I don't know,
when you were
8 years ago when I first sort of started buying watches, because it would have saved me probably thousands and thousands of dollars and time on the internet.
Yeah.
I think there's a really interesting thing. So Greg's the guy for the watches for. If he wants one watch, get a Quartz. But if this is for Chris, who's trying to get his mate into watches,
which he is.
You know what I mean? Like go the Aquadive or the Baltic or something that'll, enable him a bit more.
Well, think about this. Greg doesn't know that this conversation is taking place. He'll get sent this podcast episode afterwards.
Poor Greg.
And be like, there was an intercontinental discussion about you.
Has no idea he's about to be broke for the rest of his life as well. Bless his heart.
Oh, Greg.
Yeah.
You should stick with the G-Shocks, mate. Just
Stick
don't
with the
buy another one.
G-Shocks.
Cut Charles off.
Easier.
He's a terrible influence.
Well, I think the next thing is, we'll have to wait a while for this to publish, and then we'll definitely share with you whatever feedback we get. So that's the most exciting thing, like seeing if we were right or not.
Yeah, love
See
it.
which one he picked. I want to know. I'm very competitive, so I want to know if that my
so's
watch
Andy.
got picked.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and of course we'll link up, your show and your Instagram in the show notes and when we go live with this. But we really appreciate it. If there's anything else you'd like to sort of plug before we round this out.
How do we follow Tenn Two?
Yeah, how do we get around it?
Oh, so you can follow us over on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter as well. We're mostly active on Instagram, like a lot of people are.
Yep.
And it's at Tenn Two Media, and so that's spelled TENNAND Media ME. Oh wait.
We'll link it up.
We'll link it up.
It's really hard, y'all.
Yeah.
All right. It's at Tenn Two Media, but Tenn is spelled with 2 N's because we're from Tennessee.
Got it.
We just made it cute like that. So
Nice.
And then that our podcast is just Tenn Two.
So that was a lovely chat with Kat and Katlen from Tenn Two, which it rolls off the tongue. Kat and Kat from Tenn Two.
Lovely. Lovely duo.
Wow, that was great. Perhaps my favourite podcasting watch duo, including ourselves.
They're definitely up there.
Yeah.
They're high up on my list of watch duos.
I've realised something though, Andy. We've forgotten something.
Well, that wasn't the only thing we've liked lately.
What have you been liking?
Okay, so I have another podcast that I've been liking. It's called Winds of Change.
This sounds vaguely... That's echoing in my mind for some reason.
You might know it. You might know the song Winds of Change, but this is hosted by a journalist named Patrick Radden Keefe, who it turns out is super acclaimed and has like a knack for long form investigative journalism.
Wow, he's a real journalist.
Like the proper stuff.
Yeah.
So this is a podcast that explores a conspiracy theory that the 1990s song Winds of Change by Scorpion, you know, the one that starts off with the whistling, was somehow linked to the CIA. And it sort of stems about because it was an iconic song in Europe and it was sort of the sound of the Iron Curtain falling. It's sort of a soundtrack of like a peaceful revolution sweeping across Europe. And it's also like one of the biggest sort of rock ballads of all time.
I'm seeing where the CIA fit in. How?
Okay, so like according to some fans and listeners and that sort of thing, it's like the song that ended the Cold War. Anyway, so the podcast came about from a CIA rumor. So this guy's mate in the CIA was told when he started by like an old beard that they were basically bragging that the CIA had written the song. So Patrick Radden Keefe, the host, explores the idea that the CIA might have written or at least produced the song as a way to kind of infiltrate the East.
That's fascinating. Soft power stuff.
Yeah. Eastern Europe with Western culture. And rock and roll at the time was sort of the big thing and sort of they were allowed to kind of tour. But he chats to like, you know, he really like goes deep in an 8-part series on the origins of the song. So he talks to like former spies, historians, musicians, like the band's manager, and it ends with like the lead singer of Scorpion, Klaus Meine, which is like the coolest name ever. And like all good conspiracy theories, like you can't prove that it did happen.
You can't prove that it didn't.
You can't prove that it didn't. So if you're into like German rock, being leather clad or conspiracy theories, like this is a great podcast for you.
Nice.
And I just love the idea that, you know, a song was written by the CIA to kind of destabilize, you know,
that is. Can I just say
Union.
that is 100% plausible? That's one of my favourite icebreaker questions. Is what's your pet favourite conspiracy theory? That is a good one.
It's a great one, and like he looks at other things that they've done with culture and with books and with music that have been released since, and it's like there was one bit where they talked to like a G.I. Joe collector who also dressed up his G.I. Joe characters as like, he modded them effectively to be the band Scorpion and said, oh, imagine if these guys were spies. But like the CIA has a history of creating like even dolls as, you know, propaganda. You know, they did it with Osama bin Laden in like 2000 as a prototype. And they had him looking like the devil. And the plan was to drop it in Afghanistan and have the kids be scared of this doll. So like they have a track record of
just wacky stuff.
Wacky and using culture to, you know, push their agendas. So it's really interesting. What about you?
This is a story that I've been like into for a little while ago, and I got super excited when I saw something pop up on newsfeed. Fenn's treasure has been found.
Who is Fenn and what is his treasure?
Well, there's so much in this. I really love it. So Forrest Fenn, he's an art dealer, basically, successful, sort of retired, older art and, you know, antiques dealer.
Still alive?
Yeah, he's still alive. So 10 years ago, he announced that he had popped a 12th century treasure chest from bronze that weighs about 10 kilos on its own, full of bullion and other precious materials, somewhere in the Rocky Mountains.
Okay, wow.
Estimated value of about $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
And he wrote a poem that had like 9 clues to its location.
Wow, okay. When did he do this?
About 10 years ago, I think.
Okay, and it's just been found.
Yeah, so 10 years... has it just been found?
Ooh, whoops.
So it's just been found. So thousands and thousands of people looked for this, and several people died looking for it, and it got really hectic. There's a really, really great Wired story, which is how I came across it.
Okay.
That looked into because people are going looking for money that maybe aren't used to the wilderness and drowning in rivers and stuff like that. And it's sort of got a bit out of control, and there's sort of some theories. Perhaps this follow-up article that I'll also link from Outside Online was that so someone's allegedly found it from back east, who sent Fenn a picture of the location.
Okay.
Fenn hasn't verified who this person is, hasn't publicised it, hasn't said where it was. Perhaps he's just said it's been found to call off the hunt, like to sort of ease his way out. Perhaps there never was a treasure. Perhaps, there's some other sort of people calling into question the nature of this discovery. There's other things like early on, apparently, the Wired article was saying his email was being hacked, so people could sort of see if he revealed anything or if other people. Yeah. It goes really deep, and the other side of it is, what happens if someone's just found $1 million? They got to pay tax on this. Theoretically, does he even own it? Because if it was found on private property, theoretically, and depending on where that property is, it belongs to the landowner.
Okay.
There's a whole like the rules,
messy.
The laws around treasure, and if this constitutes treasure, are a real.
Well, wasn't the whole notion that it was a treasure hunt?
Yeah, but treasure has a legal thing of like antiquity or found stuff. But if old mate left it there 10 years ago, is it treasure?
This sounds like quite the cats and jammer, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a fascinating story. It's really, really cool. Plus, it's treasure.
Love it.
In a treasure chest. So we'll link up that, but that's really great. So I'm glad we got to talk about our favourite things, treasure, scorpion, and watches today.
Conspiracy theories.
Yep.
Galore.
And of course, Kat and Katlen. I think we need to say thank you to them so
awesome.
much for taking the time on a Tennessee evening to chat to us.
Tell you what, watch matchmaking is a whole lot easier with a bit of help spreading the load.
It's a team sport.
Yeah, that was heaps easier. Well, thank you as always to Major Tom Media for putting the show together. Guys, if you'd like to email us, otthepodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram @ot.podcast.
Yep.
And like, subscribe, tell your friends. We love it.
Yeah, awesome. Catch you next time.
See you then.
Bye.